Hi everybody, my name is Hannah and this is Pepper and Pine and I have a recipe to share with you today. I am using this book called The Best of India, a book that was gifted to me by my mother-in-law to make this recipe called Shami Kebabs. Now we're going to start off by soaking our garbanzo beans in water and baking soda. I'm going to at least soak this for an hour, but you can soak this up to overnight. You can also use canned garbanzo beans as well. We're also going to start off by rinsing our lamb stew. I've got 5 pounds here. I am making a lot of Shami kebabs and I plan to freeze them, but you can certainly reduce the amount in this recipe for a smaller portion. We're going to start off by bringing this water up to a boil so that we can get all of the scum off the top of the water. Then we're going to be cooking our lamb stew back in the Instant Pot. I'm going to save the water for other recipes, but when I'm making this, I just want about 1/4 to 1/2 cup of water and a little bit of salt, and then I'm going to cook it on high pressure for about 40 to 50 minutes. Okay, while that's cooking, we're going to work on our potatoes. I am peeling 5 potatoes. I'm going to keep those scraps for my compost bin. We're going to rinse them off and put them in another Instant Pot. You can certainly do this on the stove as well. I'm adding just a little bit of water and I'm going to cook these for about 11 minutes on high pressure. Next, we're going to work on our lentils. You want about 1 cup of lentils. We're going to toast them on the stove. No oil, just a dry toast. And you want to keep this moving so that you don't blacken any of them. But as soon as a couple of them turn black, you know it's done. And you can see how much lighter they got through this process. You want to let it cool completely before you grind them. All right, so in the meantime, we're going to prepare our garlic and our ginger. We're using 1 to 2 heads of garlic and equal amounts of ginger, as well as 2 onions that I'm going to dice up, and we're going to lightly saute them. All of these ingredients are going to get mixed together, so you can cook your onions as much as you'd like, but I would recommend that you do saute them at least a little bit before you mix them together. Our potatoes are done, so I'm just going to remove them and transfer them into a large pot that we're going to be using to mix all of our ingredients together. So my garbanzo beans have been soaking for a while. I'm just going to give them a good rinse a couple of times before we put them into that Instant Pot with a little bit of water, seasoned with a little bit of salt, and now we're going to cook these for about an hour on high pressure. So here's my garlic and my ginger and my onions are finally done being sautéed. It's almost time to put all of these ingredients together. So my red lentils are going to get blended in my NutriBullet. It's going to make them almost like a fine flour. I'm going to smash up my potatoes lightly and start to add in our other ingredients. Our garbanzo beans are done, so I'm going to scoop those out and add them to our potatoes. I'm going to lightly mash those garbanzo beans with the potatoes. I'm going to add 5 eggs, lightly beaten, to our mixture. This is really going to help bind everything together. But bear in mind that all of the ingredients are cooked at this point except for the eggs. So when you heat these on the stove, make sure that you heat them thoroughly through. Time to add in our onions and our red lentil flour and our meat. I've removed a lot of the fat pieces around it, and as I added it to our mix, I went ahead and just smashed it between my fingers just a little bit. You will be able to incorporate all of these things, but as I added it in, I went ahead and did that as well. This is looking delicious, but we're going to now work on our spices. Into my NutriBullet, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of salt, 3 tablespoons of coriander. I'm going to add 5 to 10 chili peppers, but you can add more or less depending on how spicy you want it. I'm also adding about 1.5 tablespoons of black peppercorn, as well as 5 to 8 black cardamom. I really like the flavor of black cardamom, but it does have this smoky flavor that's a little bit hit or miss. We're also going to add some green cardamom. Now, this is one of my favorite spices. I am lightly breaking the outside shell of each of these and taking just the seeds inside. So we're adding all of this into our NutriBullet along with our cumin seeds as well as black seeds. If you don't have all of these individual spices on hand, you can buy a Shami Kebab spice mix. And I'm also adding 1 to 2 tablespoons of fenugreek seeds. I'm also adding 1 teaspoon of Ajwain seeds. Now we're going to blend this all together in the NutriBullet until it's nicely finely ground together. In the NutriBullet, now we're going to add our garlic and our ginger with a little bit of liquid just so that it blends well. You don't want to add your ginger and garlic with your dry spices. You want to blend them separately. Now, before I mix everything together, I do want to saute my spices just a little bit and brown them just to bring out that flavor a little bit. And I'm also going to do the same with the garlic and the ginger. This is optional, but I do find that at least browning the spices a little bit brings some of those flavors together in a really nice way. I'm also adding a little bit of bone broth from the meat that we cooked in order to get everything incorporated. And now I am adding everything to our Shami Kebab mix. Now comes the fun and time-consuming part. This is a really time-consuming dish altogether anyway, but now it's time to form our kebabs, and you can make them in whatever shape you want, but we're going to make them sort of in hamburger shape, so round discs. And you want to keep them as even as possible so they all cook about the same. And these make really great recipes to freeze. So once they're all flat, I put them in my freezer and freeze them. And then whenever we need them, they're ready to go. I'm just going to go ahead and brown them up on both sides and add them to my plate with some rice and some lentils. And it makes such a wonderful, warm, delicious meal. Now this 5 pounds of meat with all the other ingredients made enough for probably 20 people. We had so many Shami kebabs when we were done, and I did freeze a lot of them so that we could have them whenever we wanted. You do want to make sure that you defrost them completely before you cook them, and you want to make sure that you cook them all the way through because there is that raw egg in that mix. I hope that you enjoyed this recipe, and I hope that you try it as well. You can find the complete recipe down in the description box below. And if you'd like to see what we are eating on a daily basis, you can find me on Instagram and on TikTok at Pepper and Pine.